Coming up on Network Africa, 24 soldiers killed in an attack by militants in eastern Mali. In bilateral ties, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel meets with the leaders of 12 African countries for discussions on boosting business investments on the continent. Plus, Ethiopian minority group eagerly awaits autonomy referendum slated for tomorrow. Glad you could join us this half hour. I am Amarachi Ubani. Welcome to the program. Mali's army says that 24 soldiers have been killed in an attack by militants in eastern Mali. Another 29 were also injured during a joint operation between troops from Mali and Niger in the Gao border region. Mali's army says 17 terrorists were killed and 100 suspects were being held in Tiloa in Niger. It comes weeks after 54 troops were killed in another attack, one of the deadliest in the past decade. Details of Monday's attack remain unclear, but authorities have not identified what group the assailants belonged to. In its Twitter account, the Malian army posted images, several burned out motorcycles, and said 70 were destroyed during the incident. Mali has suffered violence since 2012 when Islamist militants exploited a Tuareg separatist uprising, seizing several key cities. Meanwhile, the French military has confirmed 24 suspected militants have been killed in Burkina Faso and in Mali by regional counterinsurgency forces. G5 Sahel group supported by France also destroyed a bomb-making workshop and seized more than 100 phones and weapons in an operation lasting 2 weeks. Troops from Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso and Chad are serving in the G5 Sahel force. The identities and affiliations of the militants have not been made public, but Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State group are known to operate in the Mali-Niger Burkina Faso border zone, where the operations happen. It comes as defense and foreign ministers from across Africa meet in Senegal to discuss security, in particular in the Sahel region, where security forces are struggling to contain the spread of Islamist militant groups. In the same vein, back here in Nigeria, troops of the army says it has foiled an attack by Boko Haram insurgents in Dikwa local government area of Borno State. According to the Army Operations Media Coordinator, Colonel Aminu Ilyasu, the troops of 153 Task Force Battalion deployed to New Mate for patrol were ambushed by the insurgents at Ala village, but with their persistent intelligence and professionalism, they were able to conquer the insurgents. Colonel Ilyasu says most of the Boko Haram terrorists fled with gunshot wounds, and the troops have continued to patrol the area to ensure insurgents do not carry out any further attack. He also explained that some weapons, including gun trucks, anti-aircraft guns, NATO ammunition, armor-piercing incendiary ammunition, rifles, and mechanical tools were abandoned by the terrorists. He reinstates the military's commitment to continue to fight insurgency in order to secure the country. German Chancellor Angela Merkel is hosting the G20 Compact with Africa Summit in Berlin as a CWA, with the goal of increasing investment on the continent. African heads of state and governments expected at the one-day meeting of those of the 12 partner countries of the CWA, which includes Egypt, Ethiopia, Benin, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Guinea, Morocco, Rwanda, Senegal, Togo, Tunisia, South Africa, are all in attendance. Also to attend the summit are the heads of multilateral institutions such as the World Bank, the African Union, an African Development Bank, and International Monetary Fund. The summit, which is holding within the context of the G20 initiative, will discuss opportunities to enhance the business environment and increase investment in African countries. Let's get more of this now from the DW's Judith Helfman Hundak. She is covering the summit in Berlin. Judith, thank you for joining us on the program.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.
And this summit, the German Chancellor Angela Merkel has put together, hoping to achieve from the summit some sort of economic partnership with Africa. Is that all there is to it?
Is that, sorry, I didn't hear the last word, sorry.
Is that all there is to it, the economic partnership between Germany and these African leaders who were there for the summit?
Yeah, I think it's a multifold issue that we are dealing here with. So we have the economic partnership, but we also had signings within ministers from the partner countries and the Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development here, Minister Müller. So it was about education, it was about vocational training, it was about investments through all sectors. And I think it was just showing that Africa is on the rise, the Compact with Africa countries are on the rise, and also German and international businesses are doing more and more on the continent that is also doing good on the continent.
And what's the highlight for this year's meeting?
I think that the highlights really are that we actually had this summit for a second time. Last year we had the idea that it was probably a standalone solution. But we're very happy that we have this follow-up, that we have this extra attraction, not just for the Compact with Africa countries, but also for the continent in general. And to me, it is very important that we really manage to show how private sector is getting along on the continent. So that it happened was already my highlight.
Yeah, and I noticed that of all the countries listed, Nigeria is nowhere mentioned as a partner to this. And I understand, yes, a lot of investments coming into these African countries that are mentioned, Burkina Faso, Ghana, our neighbor, Guinea, and so on. What is Germany expecting in return?
Well, let's go back to Nigeria just for a second. I think the point really is that Nigeria is aiming at G20 membership and not at Compact with Africa membership. So, I mean, South Africa was present here today as well as a member of the G20. And all I hear from Nigeria really is that the aim is not to join the Compact with Africa, but be G20 itself. And I think also the economic engagement between Germany or other countries and Nigeria shows that that is the level playing field that we have. Then what anybody is expecting in return. I think as we have more and more multilaterals, as you said in the opening, in the group here, in the partners like IMF and World Bank, IFC, KfW, and all that, we can really see it's not a German initiative. It's a kind of, or the Chancellor feels is under the patronage of the German G20 presidency when it was sort of invented, but it's not that Germany is expecting anything in return. Of course, it expects this company to do more, but it's not expecting anything in return from the country. The main thing is that working together on reforms, working out well, and that is also the return, and it's like two sides of one coin.
Now, incidentally, it is the president or the chairman of the African Union, Egypt's president, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's birthday today, which is the one-day summit, which coincidentally falls on the one-day summit. Will there be a surprise birthday cake to him from the summit, or is there some preparation to celebrate him in any way?
Actually, he was very reluctant to talk about it in the first place. So it was only the chancellor asked him in the holding room this morning whether she could mention it at all. I would love a happy birthday by the plenary, but okay, we didn't manage that. He did get a cake in the holding room here im Haus der Deutschen Wirtschaft, and I don't quite know what they're doing tonight at the dinner, but I'm sure there will be something.
Yeah, and something tells me you didn't get a piece of the cake, Judith. But thanks again for joining us. Yeah, I know. Thanks again for joining us on the program, Judith Helfman-Hundak from Berlin. Now, on Wednesday, the Sidama people will vote in a referendum on whether to form their own self-governing region in southern Ethiopia. As comes as sweeping reforms under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed have emboldened ethnic groups to demand more rights.
There is celebrations on the streets of Hawassa to mark a young Ethiopian couple's wedding. But the groom, Awol Bayana, says he has a bigger reason to party than his wedding, an upcoming referendum on autonomy for a Sidama ethnic group.
The
question of Sidama's statehood has been ongoing for more than 130 years. It is an issue for which our forefathers have made heavy sacrifices. The referendum that will take place in about 4 days is something that makes us super excited. It's even more exciting than our wedding.
The Sidama make up around 4% of the population. They're Ethiopia's 5th largest ethnic group, and they'll vote on Wednesday on whether to form their own self-governing region in the southern part of the country. If the referendum passes, it will give the Sidama people control over local taxes, education, security, and laws. Abstake Abebe is a Sidama businessman based in the capital. He's traveling back to the region for the vote.
It's not only me. All of my family members went to Hawassa and registered themselves to vote. Also, my employees who live and work here in Addis have done the same. I arranged transportation for most of them, and some have taken public transport. No one will miss this day, God forbid, unless it's a matter of life and death. It's simply a day we will not miss.
The right to have this referendum is enshrined in Ethiopia's constitution, but it's the sweeping reforms under Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed that has encouraged regional aspirations for self-rule. There are some concerns, though, that a surge in ethnic nationalism could lead to more unrest. More than a dozen other groups are considering demanding similar votes. Ethiopia has more than 80 ethnic groups in total.
We go from northern to southern Africa. It's a day of day 5 of the crippling strike affecting South Africa's state-run airline. But South African Airways is assuring passengers that the airline is on a path to recovery. All flights of the airline's 8 international destinations are now operating as usual. SAA has also resumed flights to 6 destinations on the African continent, including Lagos, Harare, and Maputo today. The national carrier is at loggerheads with workers' unions and the SA Cabin Crew Association that have downed tools countrywide. The dispute is over wages, with workers demanding an 8% salary hike, while the airline is offering 5.9%. The impasse is also over plans by SAA to restructure the airline, a move that will see at least 900 jobs shed. The parties met with Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan on Tuesday in a bid to find a consensus. Mediatory talks last weekend had failed. The airline says the strike action has seen at least 3,000 employees abandon their posts, leaving 11,000 passengers affected. SAA has announced that a fifth of these striking members have since abandoned the strike and are back to work. And addressing a press conference today, Interim CEO Zaks Ramasya has emphasized that passengers' safety is paramount.
Today, I'm just only here to announce one thing and one thing, that SAA is on the road of operational recovery. SAA would like to reconfirm that we have resumed our operations, particularly on the international, because we have all our international flights have started operating. And we are also in fact, as from today, we've started with a limited number of our regional flights. SAA is resuming flights to the 6 destinations on the African continent, namely, we are starting to go to Accra, to go to Lagos, Lusaka, Maputo, Windhoek, and Harare. Those are the flights that we are operating. Those are the regional flights as from today. The statements made by SACA on the safety of SAA is very regrettable and it's untruthful. We are therefore taking appropriate legal action to address.
Still ahead on the program. A French Prime Minister visits Senegal's boxing academy, which is aimed to offer youths a new path in life. Stay with us.